The desert planet of Varnes was hot, dry, and full of secrets. It was the kind of place where deals were made in the shadows, and trust was a rare thing. Jake Mercer, a human scavenger and small-time trader, had seen many strange things in the galaxy, but today was different. He had just finished a trade with a shady alien smuggler named Grith. Grith looked nervous, always watching his back. Pirates were everywhere lately, and Varnes wasn't safe. Jake had helped him escape an ambush. In return, he expected payment, fuel, supplies, maybe credits. Instead, Grith opened the back of his old transport and pointed inside. "Take her," he said quickly. Inside stood a young alien woman. Tall, slim, with silver-blue skin and bright violet eyes. A metal collar was around her neck. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there, calm and silent. Jake frowned. "What is this?" "A slave," Grith whispered. "She's clean. No diseases. Smart. Quiet. Worth more than any credits I got." Jake didn't like slavery, but on this planet, laws were loose and people were desperate. He looked at the woman again. Something felt off. She didn't look scared or broken like most slaves. Her eyes were calm, focused, almost royal. "What's her name?" Jake asked. "Arya," said Grith. "I got her in a trade. Don't ask questions. Just take her and we're square." Jake didn't know why, but he agreed. Back on his ship, the Rust Runner, Jake sat across from Arya. He gave her food, water, and cut off the tracking chip on her collar. "You're free now," he said. Arya looked at him without emotion. "You should not have done that." "Why?" "They will come for me." "Who?" She stayed silent. Jake studied her face. Her skin shimmered slightly in the light. Her hair was smooth like silk. And those eyes, too intelligent for a slave. She spoke perfect English, with a soft, graceful voice. She knew how to operate ship systems. She knew the names of star routes most people had never heard of. "Who are you, really?" Jake asked. "I cannot say," Arya replied. "But I was not born a slave." That night, Jake couldn't sleep. His ship was quiet, floating above Varnes. But something wasn't right. He checked the scanners. 3 bounty ships had landed nearby. They were scanning for someone. Was it Grith? Or was it Arya? Jake watched her from the doorway. She sat still, eyes closed, breathing slow, calm, peaceful, not scared. And then her eyes opened, looking right at him. Jake felt a chill. He had accepted a slave as payment. But he was starting to wonder, had he just brought a secret worth millions onto his ship? The stars outside the ship moved slowly, as if the universe was holding its breath. Jake sat in the pilot's seat, pretending to check the navigation panel, but his eyes kept drifting toward the hallway where Arya rested. She hadn't said much since he freed her. She didn't ask questions, didn't cry, didn't even thank him. She simply sat, calm and silent, like she was waiting for something, or someone. Jake had picked up many passengers before, runaways, thieves, even bounty hunters in disguise. But Arya didn't act like any of them. She moved with grace. Her steps were soft, almost soundless. When she ate, she used perfect manners, as if raised in a palace. And when she looked at Jake, it was never with fear. It was with quiet calculation, like she was studying him. Late into the night, Jake finally spoke. "You're not a slave." Arya raised her head. "No," she said simply. "Then what are you?" She didn't answer. Jake leaned forward. "I deserve to know. You're on my ship. People are looking for you. I saw 3 bounty ships land just after we left. That's not a coincidence." She hesitated, then stood. Her eyes shimmered under the dim lights of the ship. "I was taken," she said, "from my home. I don't know how long ago. They wiped parts of my memory. But not all of it." "Where's your home?" "I can't tell you. Not yet." Jake crossed his arms. "Why not?" "Because you don't trust me," she said softly. "And I don't trust you." The words hit him harder than expected. He couldn't argue. He didn't trust her. But he also couldn't stop thinking about her. There was something magnetic about her presence, like gravity pulling him closer without permission. Arya turned away and walked to the window. She looked out into the stars. I remember a garden, she said quietly, with glass walls and birds that sang in 4 tones. My room had a ceiling of light, not stone. I was not born to serve. I was born to rule. Jake stared at her back, a chill running through his chest. Are you saying you're— I don't know yet, she said, her voice suddenly sharp. Maybe I'm just broken. Maybe I'm dangerous. Maybe I'm both. Silence filled the room again. Then, without warning, the ship's alarm blared. Jake jumped from his seat and checked the radar. 2 ships were following them. Fast. He activated the stealth shields, but it was too late. Someone had already locked onto them. Who are they? He muttered. Arya didn't move. She just closed her eyes. They've found me, she whispered. And they won't stop now. Jake looked at her, really looked this time. Not as cargo. Not as payment. But as a secret too big to carry alone. And he realized something terrifying. He didn't just save a woman. He had stolen something powerful. And the galaxy wanted her back. Jake slammed the controls as the ship shook under sudden pressure. The stealth systems weren't holding, the pursuers were smarter this time. Faster. They weren't shooting. Not yet. Which meant only one thing. They wanted someone alive. Arya. Who are they? Jake shouted as warning lights flickered red across the console. They're not bounty hunters, Arya said, her voice calm despite the chaos. She stood behind him, steady, her violet eyes focused on the radar. They're enforcers. From my world. Jake cursed under his breath. You said you didn't remember who you were. I didn't, she replied. But seeing their ship, the markings, some things come back. And you didn't think to tell me this before? I didn't think you'd believe me. Outside, the enemy ship grew closer. It had no weapons active, but its size alone was a threat. Sleek, black, with glowing blue symbols on its wings. Symbols Jake couldn't read but somehow felt. They hummed through the glass, through the ship's hull, through his chest. Jake pulled the ship hard to the left, ducking behind a small moon. The engines whined in protest, but they responded. The Rust Runner wasn't built for combat, but it had a few tricks. Hold tight, he growled, flipping switches on the side panel. We're dropping into the canyon belt. You'll kill us both, Arya warned, gripping the seat behind him. Maybe, Jake said. But if they get you, I think a clean death is the better deal. The ship dove downward, skimming the rocky terrain of the moon's surface. Jagged cliffs rose like knives, and winds howled through narrow canyons. Below them, black mist twisted between the rocks, thick, unnatural, almost alive. Jake flew like a man possessed. The enemy ship followed. And that's when Arya did something unexpected. She placed her hand on the control panel. Her fingers glowed faintly, and suddenly the ship's interface changed. Symbols appeared. Strange ones, not in any human language. The ship responded instantly. The engines grew quieter, smoother. The radar pinged twice, then silenced the pursuer's signal. Jake stared at her, stunned. What the hell did you just do? I didn't know I could, Arya whispered, eyes wide. It's like the ship. Listen to me. The Rust Runner glided into a hidden cavern beneath the moon's surface. The enemy ship flew overhead and vanished into the clouds. They had escaped barely. Jake stood slowly, his heartbeat pounding. Okay, you need to tell me everything. Now. Arya sat down, her hands trembling. I wasn't just anyone back home, she began. I was born into the royal bloodline of Lasari. My people ruled 3 systems. My father was king, until the regent, my uncle, took the throne while I was still young. Jake leaned against the wall, trying to process. He tried to kill me, but I escaped. They erased parts of my mind to keep me hidden. My powers, they were sealed. Until now. Jake ran a hand through his hair. So let me get this straight. You're not just a fugitive, you're a royal, a political weapon, a walking key to an empire. Arya nodded slowly. And now that I have you, Jake muttered, every bounty hunter, assassin, and warlord in this sector is going to come knocking. She looked up at him, eyes full of something between fear and fire. Then you better decide, Jake. Are you going to run? Or are you going to help me take back my crown? For the first time, Jake had no words. He had taken a slave. Now he held the fate of a kingdom. The void of space stretched wide and silent as the Rust Runner sailed through uncharted black. Somewhere behind them, the enforcers were still searching. Somewhere ahead, answers waited. Jake hadn't spoken much since the escape. He just flew. Arya sat in the co-pilot seat, watching stars move past in long silver streaks, her thoughts drifting deeper than light speed. She had awakened something inside the ship, something buried, old. And now it wasn't just the ship that responded to her. Her mind felt clearer, faster. The sealed memories were cracking open like fragile glass. She could remember the way her father used to hold her hand as they walked across the floating gardens of Lissari. She could hear the royal guards calling her Starborn. She remembered laughter, son, her mother's voice, then fire, screams, a betrayal, hands pulling her away, a metal room, a sharp pain, darkness. Jake finally broke the silence. We're not going back to Varney's, he said. Good, she replied, voice distant. I've been thinking. There's an old station, deep in the Thorn Belt. Abandoned. Used to be a mining hub until something collapsed it. It's off-grid, full of scavengers now, smugglers, ghost ships. Perfect place to hide. And maybe find someone who knows more about this regent of yours. Arya didn't answer at first. Then she asked, Why are you helping me, Jake? He thought for a moment. I wish I knew. At first, I thought I was just being decent. Maybe guilty. But now, he looked at her. You're more than just a runaway princess. You lit up my ship like it knew you. You unlocked systems I didn't even know existed. And you don't flinch. Not even when death's flying right behind us. She smiled faintly. I wasn't raised to flinch. Jake nodded. Yeah, that's what scares me. The Thorn Belt appeared like a wall of floating debris, stretching for millions of kilometers. Ancient machines drifted like corpses. Dead ships turned slowly, silent and hollow. No stars shined through the thick clouds of cosmic dust. Jake maneuvered carefully, slipping the Rust Runner through narrow gaps between broken freighters and asteroid shards. Eventually, a large shadow appeared. An old mining station, half-powered, barely alive. They docked. The air smelled like rust and oil. Inside, flickering lights led them down metal corridors lined with graffiti in dozens of alien languages. Broken androids lay in piles. People stared as they passed, humans, half-breeds, ex-soldiers. Everyone here had something to hide. Jake met with an old contact, a woman named Kelna. She was missing one arm, wore 3 knives, and smiled like a shark. She agreed to trade information. For a price. Kelna led them to a forgotten sector of the station, where power still hummed from an old vault door. This place predates the Empire, she said. And she, pointing at Arya, has the blood to open it. How do you know? Jake asked, tense. Because we've been watching her, Kelna whispered. Longer than you know. Before Jake could react, Arya stepped forward. The door read her presence. Lights flared to life. The door opened. Inside was a room full of glowing crystal screens, old weapons, strange orbs, and a sealed cube pulsing with golden light. Arya walked to the cube. Her hand trembled as she touched it. It opened, and with it, something ancient awakened. Jake felt the pressure in the air shift, like space itself held its breath. Arya turned around, her eyes no longer just violet, but blazing with light. I remember now, she said, her voice calm and full of power. He didn't just betray the crown, he betrayed the galaxy. Jake stared, speechless. This wasn't the woman he found in a cage. This was the spark of something far greater, and the galaxy would soon feel it. The vault hummed like it was alive. Lights flickered across the ceiling as ancient systems reactivated, casting shifting patterns of gold and blue across Arya's face. She stood perfectly still, both hands resting on the cube's edge, her violet eyes glowing faintly with power that hadn't fully returned. Yet, Jake watched from a few steps back, silent. The room felt holy somehow. Or cursed. He wasn't sure anymore. The screens around them flickered on, one by one, displaying symbols in a forgotten tongue, Aria's language. Then they shifted. Shapes, maps, documents, star charts, armies, broadcasts from decades ago, declarations of war, and finally, a coronation, a child's face, Arya, younger, smiling, crowned in silver. Jake swallowed hard. This was no longer a question of truth. She wasn't just some royal escapee. She had been the heir to a throne that ruled thousands of worlds. And now she was standing in a forgotten war room, unlocking it like she'd never left. He took a breath. "You okay?" "No," she replied. "But I will be." Kelna leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Told you, the blood never lies." This place was built during the first expansion wars. Only direct descendants could access it. She just reconnected it to the royal network. Jake glanced at her. "So what now?" Kelna smiled with half her teeth. "Now she chooses. Hide or fight." Arya's voice cut through the silence. "I'm not hiding anymore." She turned to Jake, and her expression shifted. Still proud, still strong. But there was something else there now. Doubt, pain, fear she refused to show anyone else. "I remember how it ended," she said. "The day my uncle came. He told the palace I was ill, that I needed special care. My father believed him, but he was already dead." Jake stepped forward slowly. "He murdered the king?" Arya nodded. "And the queen, my mother. He used a mind fade serum on me, planted false memories. Gave me to traitors. Told them I was a gift for a governor who never existed." "Why?" Jake asked, though he already knew. "Because I was the only one left with the authority to stop him. The codes, the voice print, the blood signature. All of it lives in me. And now it's waking up." Jake looked at the room around them. He saw screens displaying troop locations. Old messages sent from rebel fleets. Stolen war assets. Hidden safe houses. This wasn't just a memory vault. It was a throne in exile. And Arya had just claimed it. She turned back to the cube. It responded to her touch again, lifting up a small silver disc glowing with royal seals. Her signet, her birthright, the only item in the galaxy that could override a command issued by the regent. Jake's voice was low. "You know what happens if you use that? Every Imperial satellite will track you. Every loyalist fleet will call you a traitor. You'll start a war." "I know," she said. "But if I don't, the war never ends. It just hides, like me." There was a long silence. Then Jake said, "If you're going to do this, you'll need allies. Real ones. Not smugglers or ghosts." "I know where to start," Arya said. "But I'll need you, Jake." He hesitated. He had seen war, fought in it, left it behind for a reason. But this was bigger than a paycheck or a ship or a name. "You saved me," she said softly, "when I was just a prisoner in chains. I didn't know my name. I didn't know my voice. But you heard it." Jake looked into her eyes, and he nodded. "Then let's make the galaxy listen." From the shadows, Kelna chuckled. "You two are going to get us all killed." Jake smirked. "Maybe. But if we're going down, might as well aim for the throne." Outside, the void waited. Inside, the queen was waking, and nothing would ever be the same again. The ship moved like a shadow between stars. Its lights were dim, its engine silent to most sensors. But its purpose screamed across space. War was coming. Jake sat in the pilot's chair, hands tight on the controls. The silence between him and Arya was thick, but not empty. It was the silence before something enormous. A moment stretching like the breath before a storm. She stood behind him, wearing a black coat draped over a light armor suit Kelna had found in the vault. It shimmered faintly with royal etchings, designed not for decoration, but survival. She no longer looked like a passenger. She looked like a queen preparing for war. Their target was a communications relay orbiting a dead planet, once a key node in the Lasari royal network. Now, under the Regent's control, it broadcast lies across 100 systems. That Arya had died in a crash, that the line of succession was closed, that the Regent ruled by law, not blood. She was going to take it back. Jake checked the radar. We're coming up on the Shadow Gate. Once we jump in, we've got about 6 minutes before the Regent's satellites ping us. Maybe less. Arya nodded, eyes fixed forward. I only need 3. They dropped from warp inside the planet's debris field, an ancient graveyard of broken ships, orbiting in silence. Once, this place had defended Lasari's trade routes. Now it was a crypt. At the center, the relay station spun like a wounded eye, its signal tower cracked and patched with metallic scars. Jake slid the ship through the junk field while Arya moved to the weapons bay. He didn't ask what she was doing. He trusted her now in ways that didn't make sense. He had seen her power, but more than that, he had seen her fear, her pain, her fire, and he would follow it into hell. The moment they docked, she moved. Arya didn't hesitate. She walked through smoke-filled corridors like she'd built them. The guards at the relay were unprepared. Bored men in stolen uniforms, laughing over half-broken screens. They never saw her coming. Jake followed, blaster ready, watching her take control not with violence, but command. She moved like the station already belonged to her. The systems responded the same way the vault had, identifying her blood signature, unlocking restricted layers. She uploaded a live message to the central broadcast feed. Jake watched her step onto the platform. A camera scanned her face. The moment it did, the signal went live, across dozens of worlds. Her voice rang out across the void. I am Arya Vel Solari, true heir of Lasari. I was stolen, silenced, but no more. I have returned. Her image beamed across cities, colonies, and battlecruisers alike. Some recognized her immediately. Others stared, confused, uncertain. But in the Regent's stronghold, far across the stars, alarms exploded to life. And the man who had tried to erase her sat frozen as her face appeared above his palace, broadcast in full. She's alive, he whispered. He turned to his high advisors. Kill the signal. Find the traitor who helped her. I want her head before the cycle ends. But it was too late. Rebel networks had already copied the message. Royalists still in hiding had begun responding. Old ships with Lasari crests came back online. Fleets long silent moved toward coded coordinates. The spark had become a flame. Back on the relay station, Jake watched as Arya shut down the terminal. She was pale, trembling, but standing. You did it, he said. Arya didn't answer right away. She looked out the window, where 3 warships had appeared on the edge of the system. Did I? She said softly. Because as the lights dimmed, a message blinked on the screen. Encrypted, but unmistakable. Message origin, Royal Flagship Regent class. They weren't running anymore. The enemy was coming to her. Jake took a long breath. We need to move. But Arya didn't flinch. No, she said. We need to prepare. She turned to him, fire returning to her voice. He's coming for me himself. The sky above Velis burned gold. Not from sunlight, but from fire. The Regent's flagship had entered the upper atmosphere 2 hours ago, followed by a fleet of smaller warships, all bearing the old symbols of the Lasari Empire twisted into new, brutal shapes. They came not to fight a war, but to end one before it could begin. Arya stood on the balcony of the old royal tower, the last place she had ever seen her mother alive. The winds carried ash from the ruined city walls below. The people of Lasari, what remained of them, watched from the streets, hiding behind fallen statues and shattered walls. The news had spread like wildfire. The true heir had returned, and the Regent was coming to crush her in person. Jake adjusted the sight on his rifle as he crouched behind the ledge beside her. You know this is madness, right? You're calling him to the one place he's always feared you'd return. That's why he's rushing, Arya said calmly. He's afraid. You think he'll land? He has to, she said. Because if he doesn't, I'll take the palace back without firing a shot. The people remember me. Some of the guards already switched sides. Jake nodded slowly, watching her. She didn't shake, didn't flinch, but her hand gripped the stone railing tighter than it should. "You're ready to face him?" he asked. "I'm not the girl he tried to erase," she said. "And I'm not the slave he sold into chains. I'm the storm he failed to silence." A low hum filled the air. From above the clouds, a monstrous ship descended, sleek, dark, its surface moving like liquid steel. The flagship. Jake raised his rifle, but Arya touched his arm. "He won't shoot yet. He wants a show. He always has." The ship landed with a sound like thunder cracking stone. From the lowered ramp, a tall man stepped out in black imperial robes trimmed with silver. His face was older, colder, but still familiar, sharp features carved from arrogance and control. The regent. He walked through the courtyard alone, not even armored. That was the message. "I don't need protection to destroy you." Arya met him halfway, walking barefoot across the cracked marble floor. They stood face to face. No guards, no armies, just bloodline against bloodline. He smiled, cruel and false. "You should have stayed dead." "I did," she said. "And you should have made sure I never remembered." He raised a small device, glowing red. "This signal will burn every trace of your little rebellion. Your codes, your command posts, even the ones hiding in the outer systems. You think this is victory? It's your funeral." But Arya didn't move. Instead, she lifted her hand and spoke 3 words in the royal tongue. The air shimmered. The device in the regent's hand blinked, then melted in his palm. His eyes widened. From behind the old tower walls, hundreds of lights flared to life. Cloaked rebel ships powered up. Old royal droids activated. The palace systems rebooted with Arya's signature. She had taken back the entire capital. Not with fire, but with blood authority. The regent turned to run. Jake fired once. The shot wasn't fatal, but it dropped him hard. Arya stepped over her uncle's wounded body. She looked down at him, not with hate, but with something colder. Pity. "You ended my family," she said. "But you never understood something. Ruling doesn't come from fear. It comes from faith." She turned her back and walked away. The palace gates opened wide behind her. The people cheered, and Lasari was reborn. Hours later, Jake stood by the edge of the tower garden. The same one Arya once described from her half-lost memories. The sky was clear now. No warships, no alarms. Just peace for the first time in years. She found him leaning on the railing, watching the horizon. "They're calling you hero of the throne," she said with a small smile. He chuckled. "Tell them to stop before it sticks." She came beside him. No armor now, just herself. "I want you to stay," she said quietly. "Not as a soldier, not even as a royal advisor, just as you." Jake turned to her. "And what if I'm not meant to live in palaces?" She took his hand. "Then I'll build you one with engines." He smiled. "And a good view." The stars began to rise. This time they weren't running. They were home.